And welcome back as we go ahead and take a look at how to program with arrays. We, of course, have done some examples and talked about how arrays work, but let's go ahead and start from the bottom and work our way up just to make sure we have a good understanding. So if you look, I have 4 comments here. They're going to kind of walk us through some of the basic things that we can do with this. So let's first go ahead and start by creating a statically assigned array. And for this purposes, I'm going to go ahead and use int arrays for everything here. However, a lot of what you see here, we could also do with string, we could do with double, we could do with any class types that we're doing, but I'm going to go ahead and for our demonstration purposes, stick to integer. So we have an int array, and remember it's always going to have those square brackets after the type. If you don't put the square brackets there, it will give you an error. And I'm just going to call this ARR for short for array. And let's set this equal to a new int array of size. Let's just keep it simple and do size 5. All right. Now I'm going to create an array using user input. Now, before I do that, I am going to want to actually take a step back and statically assign values here. So the way we can do this is, of course, I can come in here and manually assign each of these values. So for example, I could say array of 0, and I could give it a value. And this, of course, would do this. We, of course, could also fill it with a loop. It would be another way to do it. Or if we know exactly what these values are, I can also set it up so that way I am assigning the values like this. I can use those curly brackets. I can come in here. I can assign in values. And this would also, of course, fill it. Now, notice, of course, we do have an issue here. Now I was like, I don't know what this is. This is insert semicolon alt, because what did we forget? Semicolon, there we go. Now, both ways are perfectly valid. You can, again, statically assign it this way, or you can come in here and say R of 0. I'm just going to go ahead and change this just so we have a demonstration purposes equals 10. And that, of course, would allow me to come in here and fill these values one by one. So I could say R of 0 equals 10, R of 1 equals whatever number you want to pick, and I could assign those in here. Now, if I want to create an array using user input, let's just go ahead and tap into that keyboard. So I'm going to say int. We'll call this r size equals kb.nextInt. Though I might want to give the user a prompt. So let's just say system.out.println. And we'll say, please choose a size for your array between 3 and 5. And let's just assume for our purposes that the user is going to follow those directions. Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and actually get that input for the array. So again, we're going to use another int array. I almost forgot my square brackets there. And I'm calling this R2. And I'm going to set this equal this time to a new, let's do it integer this. So this time we'll use our size, because remember you can also use a variable to specify the size of the array. You don't have to have a statically assigned number in there. You can use a variable. Just remember that once you create that array size is not going to change. So if you say, well, I'm going to make it array size, and then later I'm going to try to change it, can't do that. Not with the arrays. So let's go ahead and fill this array now using user input. So this is where we can use our for loop. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0. And I'll just say I is less than r2.length. This is always a better option when you're filling the array, is to use the .length, because then you will make sure you don't exceed the length of that array. And all I'm going to do is use I++. And that will again traverse me through the full length of that array. Now, let's go ahead and first to see if we can fill those values. And all we need to do is just hit ARR of I, because remember I is the current position in that loop, and I'm going to set that equal to kb.nextInt, and that will allow me to fill it. And again, I can add in a prompt here to just simply give a little more direction. So system out println, let's just say, please enter a value to fill the array. All right, and that's all we need to do for filling the array. Now, if we want to compare the two array values, obviously we can use a for loop to go through and compare each value, but the very first thing that we can do is to see if those arrays are even the same size, because if they aren't the same size, then we know, for example, those arrays are not equal. So I'm just going to do a quick if statement. So if r.length is equal to r2.length, I can then do a for loop. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and fall out and just say system.out.println. And we'll just say the arrays are not equal. So let's compare now, assuming that they are equal. So again, we can use another for loop. So again, int I equals 0. I is less than. And it doesn't matter here which array I pick, because ultimately, if we know these arrays are the same length, this r.length or r2.length will be the same value. So I'll just do I++. And then all we're going to do is compare those integers inside of it. So we're going to say if r of I is equal to r2 of I, now we could do this and just say if it is equal, boom, 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 it keeps going. However, a better option is to take this whole thing and just say if these are not equal. Because then if at any point they are not equal, then we don't need to keep checking the loop. However, if we say if they are equal, we can print out statement this value is equal, this value is equal. However, just by saying that it's not equal, it's going to be a better use of our code because we only are looking for the one condition that breaks it. So even if this was, let's say we made our arrays 1,000 long, doesn't matter. We only need that one condition that's going to break it. So we can then just put in here, I'm just going to copy this else statement, and we say the arrays are not equal. Then it would, of course, we want it to fall out of that loop. So we're going to then just break, and that will terminate the loop for us. So then we don't have to keep checking the rest of the array. So this, I think, is pretty good. Let's go ahead and test this out. And so let's just choose an array. Since we have an array up here of size 5, let's go ahead and first test the not equals here. So I'll do 3. And I'm just going to enter in. Let's just go ahead and put the first 10 values. So a couple values. So 10, then we have 1 and 2. The arrays are not equal because we know the sizes are different. But if we rerun this, and let's do size 5, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the same value. So notice we do have a 10 here. So let's go ahead and do 10, then 1, 2, 3, and 4. Notice it stopped. All right. And the reason why it stopped and didn't print anything out is because we never gave it another statement here. So let me just go ahead and add that print line statement, say the arrays are equal. And so if I rerun that one more time, 10, then 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, apparently I inadvertently created a infinite loop here because I put my statement in the wrong spot. So let me just terminate this and see. So we have this print line statement should go here. And so we'll rerun that. So let's go ahead and we want to put in size 5. I think of course, last time didn't put in the right value here, but now we're good. So that's 5. We're going to do 10. We're going to then do 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And we get the arrays are equal, the arrays are equal. Oh, of course, I was a little overzealous. I realized I put the wrong thing in there. So rerunning one more time. Array size 5. Make sure I put the right number in this time. Then 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. The arrays are equal. Perfect. And that's a really great demonstration. One more thing I'm going to show real quick here is if we wanted to, let's say, do something with those array values. So if I wanted to, for example, add a number. So let's just say int num, and we're going to set that equal to 0. And if I wanted to pull a specific value out of array, so let's just say num is equal to r of, let's say, 2 or 3, that works too. And I can say plus num. If I were to do something like this, you notice we don't get errors. All it's going to do is it's going to substitute that in. So this can be very powerful. We can do things like this also inside of loops as well. Really great for doing things like an averager function. You might have something like that where you want to take all the numbers that are stored in an array, add them up, and then divide by the number of terms to find out what the average is. But this should, of course, give you a nice, good couple examples of things of how we can set up arrays, how we can use them, and actually start diving into a lot of the functionality we need.